He was rich, he was young, and then he vanished. No ransom, no body, just silence. Some say he drowned, others think he's still alive, but the truth, it's far darker than anyone wants to admit. Michael Rockefeller wasn't just anyone. He was the son of Nelson Rockefeller, governor of New York, future vice president of the United States, and heir to one of the richest families in American history. When you think Rockefeller, you think untouchable. Old money, powerful friends, someone who'd never be left behind. But Michael wasn't like the rest of them. He didn't want Wall Street. He didn't want politics. He didn't even want safety. What he wanted was adventure. Real, raw, untouched by tourism kind of adventure. He was fascinated by tribal cultures, especially the ones most people were too scared to even read about. In 1961, at just 23 years old, he traveled to Dutch New Guinea, now known as Papua Indonesia. Not exactly a spring break hotspot. He wasn't on vacation. He was collecting tribal art for the Museum of Primitive Art in New York City, which was founded by his father, of course. But for Michael, this wasn't just some gallery mission. He was obsessed with the Asmat people, a tribe known for their wood carvings, their culture, and their interesting past. Because here's what most people didn't want to talk about. The Asmat had a long history of headhunting and, content warning, sorry for the rest of this video, cannibalism. And they weren't some forgotten relic. They were still living like they had for centuries. Outsiders were tolerated, but never fully trusted. Missionaries, anthropologists, and even the government officials treaded lightly there, and yet Michael wanted to live among them. On November 17, 1961, Michael and a Dutch anthropologist named Rene Wassing were traveling down the coast in a small catamaran, which was literally just like a canoe with an engine. I mean, like, it was terrible. Anyway, they were miles away from any real settlement. The sea started to get rough, a wave hit, the engine died, and the boat capsized. Just two men drifting, holding on to an overturned boat for over 24 hours. The Dutch authorities sent a search plane. They saw the boat, they dropped supplies, but Michael didn't wait. He looked at Rene and said, "I think I can make it." He stripped down, strapped two empty gas cans to his waist for flotation, and swam towards shore. The shoreline was roughly 10 miles away, through open ocean, through crocodile-infested waters, through pure hell. That was the last time anyone saw Michael Rockefeller alive. At least, officially. The Dutch launched one of the biggest search operations the region had ever seen. Planes, boats, helicopters. They interviewed local villagers. They scoured the jungle and coastline. Nothing. No body, no clothes, no gas cans, just gone. Disappeared. The Dutch government said he probably drowned, right? The Rockefellers agreed. A few quiet statements to the press, and that was it. Mystery closed, right? Done. But if you know anything about how people drowned, especially someone as strong, determined, and physically fit as Michael, remember he was only 23, it doesn't really add up, you know? Bodies usually surface, debris washes up, anything should have been found. But there was nothing. It was too clean and it was too silent. And in the villages nearby, there were rumors. Things people were too scared to say in public. It didn't take long for the stories to start leaking. Missionaries, colonial officers, and even other anthropologists heard the same thing from different sources. Michael Rockefeller had made it to shore. He was not drowned. And he was killed by tribesmen. Why? Revenge. You see, we kind of have to go back. 2 years before Michael's trip, Dutch colonial officers had entered an Asmat village called Oostanyup, hopefully I said that right, and killed several of their warriors, shot them, burned their homes, and they never apologized. That was not just a raid, it was blood debt to the Asmat people. To the Asmat, death wasn't just physical, it was spiritual. If someone was killed unjustly, it wasn't enough to forgive. You had to restore balance by killing someone equally powerful and consuming them. So when Michael, young, white, unarmed, and rich, showed up alone and desperate on that same stretch of coast, the tribe may have seen him as the perfect offering to restore order. A quick thing, real quick, the people that were killed from the Asmats were actually elders. So they weren't just like regular tribespeople, not that it makes it any better, but the elders were like really powerful. So they were really messed up by this. So Michael showed up and they're like, damn, look, our god or whatever sent us Michael as a sacrifice. There are even reports that some villagers wore foreign-looking glasses, and they used steel tools that they never had before. Some missionaries claim they saw white bones in ceremonial huts, bones that didn't look like they came from pigs or birds. But here's the kicker. They weren't allowed to ask questions. Locals would shut down, authorities would warn them not to dig deeper, and many of those who tried just stopped talking. This was hidden for decades. Until, fast forward to 2014, a man named Carl Hoffman, a journalist and author, decided to go back to where it all happened. He learned the local dialect, lived among the tribes, ate their food, slept in their huts, and slowly, piece by piece, he uncovered something that no one else could. One elder in a remote Asmat village told Hoffman something chilling. Years ago, he said, a white man came from the sea. The man was caught, killed, and eaten. It was part of a ritual done with purpose, not out of hatred, but as part of their ancient law. They even mimicked the motion of slicing a throat. Other villagers, completely unrelated, told the same story. Word for word, it was too consistent to be a coincidence. Hoffman gathered these stories, cross-referenced them, and connected them to maps, tide patterns, and distances. Every clue pointed to one thing. Michael did not drown that day. He made it to shore, and he was killed. Maybe even consumed, as a symbolic act. Not to get too gory, but there were also reports that possibly they did sort of like blood rituals. They would drink blood, all kinds of crazy stuff. So if you guys want to go into that more, you can research it. I'm not going to go into the deep description of what these guys do with people that they kill, but it's really insane if you want to see it. So the Dutch government never responded to the case. The Rockefellers stayed silent, but the truth, it doesn't care about silence. The truth will always come out. There's also a kind of crazier theory, not crazier, but some people say that he just didn't die, right? Like, as strange as it sounds, not everyone agreed with the cannibalism story, right? Some believe Michael survived and he actually joined the tribe. It sounds crazy, but if you think about it, what if they just didn't kill him? What if he was taken in, given a new name, a new identity, and a new life among people who lived completely off the grid? This wasn't really just a fantasy because Michael was obsessed with this tribe. He could have been tired of the New York life in America with the Rockefellers and all the notoriety, and he just wanted to live in a tribe. I mean, at least that's what it could have started, and then maybe he regretted it, but it's not entirely implausible that it happened. Other Westerners before had become absorbed in remote cultures, especially ones that they respected, with humility. And the Asmat had never seen anyone like Michael before. His determination, his drive to understand them, and his willingness to live their way. What if he didn't want to come back, It sounds wild, but when you remove the boundaries of modern civilization, anything is possible, especially when no one's around to tell the story. Further elaborating on the Asmat people, to really understand what might have happened to Michael, you have to understand how Asmat saw the world. This wasn't just some basic island tribe living in huts and spearfishing. Their entire society was built on balance between the living and the dead, the seen and the unseen. They didn't just kill enemies, they avenged spirits. When a warrior was killed, especially by outsiders, it left a spiritual imbalance. For Michael, it wasn't about murder, it was about cosmic order. And in Asmat culture, cannibalism wasn't for hunger, it was sacred. They believed that by consuming the flesh of their enemy, they absorbed his power, his strength, and his spirit. It was an ancient rite that went beyond revenge, it was transformation. So when people scoff at the idea that Michael could have been eaten, they were thinking like outsiders. To the Asmat, he would have just been a victim. As insane as it sounds, he was just normal to them, right? He just would have been a sacrifice, an offering, and a means of restoring in their in their view of harmony. Surprisingly, the Rockefellers were very, very silent about this. When your last name is Rockefeller, doors don't just open, they vanish. You have influence in every corner of politics, media, business, and diplomacy. Why didn't they push harder for answers? Maybe they did behind closed doors, but publicly, the family went quiet and shockingly fast. No press conferences, no demands for justice, just a polite, "We believe he drowned," and that was that. You'd think a family that was powerful enough to send private investigators, helicopters, Navy ships, all that would push harder to investigate, but they kind of gave up really fast. I mean, like a week and a half, and that was it. Maybe they realized the answer was worse than the mystery. Think about it. What would it mean if they confirmed the cannibalism theory? Not only would it destroy their son's legacy, but it would trigger international headlines, shame the Dutch, offend an entire indigenous group, and possibly even invite calls for retaliation. They had more to lose from the truth than from silence. And maybe, just maybe, someone made them an offer, a deal, a request to let things be for the good of the colony, the church, and quote-unquote global stability. Whatever it was, it worked, because the Rockefeller machine hasn't said a word since. There's one last twist that's worth mentioning. A blurry photo snapped years after Michael's disappearance shows a tall, bearded white man in an Asmat village surrounded by tribesmen. He's wearing traditional clothing, but he stands out. Too tall, too pale. Some claims it's Michael, others say it's a hoax, but to this day, no one's been able to confirm who that man was. Let's add it all up. A powerful young man vanishes in one of the most remote and dangerous places on Earth. Tribal stories surface pointing to revenge, killing, and cannibalism. A blurry photo hints that he may have survived, and governments go silent. The family says nothing, and decades pass with no real investigation. At some point, you stop believing in coincidence. This wasn't just about a boy who swam to shore and didn't make it. This was about a world that wasn't ready to face what really happened. And that, maybe more than anything, it's why Michael Rockefeller disappeared, and why he was never allowed to come back. He didn't want to be in this world that existed. If you guys like this video and enjoy the story of Michael Rockefeller, please like the video, subscribe, and give me a suggestion down below of what you'd like to see next. Thanks guys, I'll see you next time.